Welcome to the Manifesting Doll podcast. I'm Barbara Orban from No Diet Babe. I'm a spiritual mindset coach and weight loss expert. If you are a spiritual babe wanting to up-level your life around your body, health, wellness, spirituality, law of attraction and manifestation, then this is the podcast for you. I'm here to give you the tools, teachings, and strategies to manifest the body and life of your dreams. As spiritual babes, we know to focus on love as opposed to fear. So get ready to learn how to implement spiritual teachings to weight loss, wellness, and your daily life, coming from a place of love and abundance. This is a celebration of how we can shift our inner perception of ourselves and watch our outer selves shift. You can become the best version of yourself, and I'm here to help. So let's get started. Hey babes, welcome to the Manifesting Doll podcast. I'm Barbara Orban from NoDietBabe.com, and welcome to today's episode. So today I want to talk about how to know when you're operating from a wounded child, specifically, of course, around food and your weight. So I really want to help you guys with this today because why am I doing this? Okay, number one, I notice many people trying to control their weight from their inner child. And really what they need to do is work on doing the deeper inner work. Whereas what they're actually focusing on is how many times per week should I exercise? What diet is going to get me to lose weight? What's the quickest way to lose weight? Do I cut carbohydrates? Let me just get motivated. Let me hire somebody to get me motivated. Let me sign up for a challenge so that I'm held accountable. All of these things, people are focusing on those things and then wondering why they're stuck in a yo-yo pattern or they're suddenly back to square one a few years later, rather than doing the deeper inner work. Okay, so specifically what I've been doing around relationships actually is this work, because I've done it all around food, and some around relationships. I don't want to say I haven't done any work, of course. Like I've done so much work around inner child work, relationship work, other stuff anyway that I've talked about before. But there are certain aspects that I'm learning now around boundaries and codependency stuff that I just could not see before. Like when you just become conscious of something within yourself and you're like, damn, I did not see this in myself before. And you see it in yourself and then all of a sudden like you're growing and then you're learning new things, right? Anyway, back to this, right, is that this is the stuff that I had to work on and this is who I was. Okay, so I'm going to mention all of these things that are signs that you're operating from your wounded child around food and weight. And let me tell you, I was all of these things. And now what am I? Now I'm a new way of describing it is a functional adult. Now I'm a healthy, functional adult around food and my weight, okay? And that's where I'm going to just give you these tips so that you know whether or not you are too operating from your wounded child around food and weight, and then you too need to work on becoming a healthy, functional adult around food and weight, okay? So it's basically immaturity, right? Immaturity meaning there's dysfunction there where you haven't yet grown into an adult in certain areas, which is actually what I've said before in previous episodes and previous content, is actually the cause of emotional eating. Emotional eating is a sign that there's immaturity somewhere. and that growth needs to happen. Okay. So basically, signs that you operate from a wounded child around food and weight are you're really driven to be a super achiever around dieting and weight loss. So what I mean by this is when you are on. So let's say you do sign up for that 12-week challenge and you really turn it on. Can you think of a time in your life when you really turned it on? And I mean, you were like so perfect with sticking to your diet and you were on this high. Like it felt like euphoria as you were losing weight because you were on. You were so on and you were perfect. Think about if you've ever done that before. Then also the rest of the time, which seemingly is most of the time, like that's what I've noticed within myself, what I used to be like. The rest of the time, you are terrible around food and constantly criticizing yourself because you're inadequate around food and weight in general. You always seem to be inadequate. No matter what you do, you don't do enough. You are always inadequate. Okay? You long for the times where you were a super achiever around dieting and you reminisce on those times. And you think about them all the time. If only I could do that again. If only I could be that perfect around weight loss, then everything would be okay. Everything would be okay. I would be happy. I would be confident. My life would finally be put together and I would be the person that I want to be and everything would be all good. Okay? The healing fantasy, right? So then you are constantly thinking about that. You're reminiscing on that, right? You reminisce on the times where you were able to be perfect, and with what you're currently doing, you constantly criticize yourself. You constantly criticize yourself. You're constantly saying, why didn't I do better yesterday? Why didn't I do better last week? Why didn't I do better the last few months? Right? You're always saying, I should do this. I should have done that. Let me try and control myself tomorrow. But what you're doing in actual fact is you're beating yourself up and then you're saying, right, tomorrow I'm going to do this instead. And that's all you do. You're not doing any other work on yourself. You're just basically trying to control this wild child inside of you, right? By beating it up even more, which is not what it needs, by the way. You set standards around dieting where you have to be rigid and perfect in order to lose weight. So you constantly tell yourself these stories like, I can't lose weight unless I'm perfect. And you end up just having a real fear relationship with food. So you literally, your whole nervous system gets involved around food, and your nervous system is all up and down, even when you look at a high carb food, for example, or you look at a cookie or a chocolate. You just have to be super rigid and you have to cut everything out. You have to cut everything out and you have to be rigid and perfect, and that's the only way it's going to work, because that's the only way that it's ever worked in the past, and that's your story, and you really identify with that. Okay? Then you tend, but like I said, those are when you're trying to diet, but then the rest of the time you generally, even if that's like a short-term thing, you generally come back to not having control around food and then regretting it later. So that's like your set point. You come back to that set point. You keep coming back to your set point and you're like, why do I do this to myself, right? Keep coming back to the set point of, I just can't control myself. I set an intention and then I don't follow through, and then you just regret it. And which leads on to this one, which is you tend to feel resentment, self-blame, and regret around your weight and food most of the time. So if you feel frustrated constantly with yourself and your body, why? I'm just so frustrated that weight loss is so hard. I'm just so frustrated that no matter what I do, I can't lose weight. I just really resent myself, right? I really resent myself. Or you're blaming yourself all the time, beating yourself up, right? Regret. I just wish I would have done differently. I wish I didn't gain all this weight and now I'm in a position where I hate my body and none of my clothes fit, right? If you keep getting yourself back to that point where you're at your heaviest, please, please, please notice that you tend to then operate from a wounded child, because it isn't just about your weight and food. There are deeper reasons why people do this to themselves. They set an intention to lose weight. Months and months later, they are at their heaviest and they're like, how did I get here? Why did I get here? How did this happen all of a sudden? How did this happen without me knowing that this was happening? Right? These are all signs that you have to do some deeper inner work, okay? You always feel hungry and you feel like you can always eat. So you're basically one of those people that just says, yeah, I can eat all the time. I'm always hungry, right? You're always being prompted to eat. You feel like constantly you're thinking about food. You're just like, oh my God, yeah, that cookie would be so good right now. Oh, the chocolate in the cupboard is calling me, right? Yet you don't seem to have many emotions. Right? You don't really, you'll say to me, yeah, I'm just really not an emotional person. I'm just really not an emotional person. That is a sign that there are some issues going on there, that you are now repressing, and instead of feeling emotions, you just have food cravings. You simply just have food cravings, and it's so innocent. You think to yourself, I'm not emotional. How can I be an emotional eater when I'm not emotional? Emotional eaters aren't emotional. That's the whole problem. Human beings are meant to be emotional. Human beings are meant to be emotional. If you're not emotional, if you don't have emotions, some things happening there. You are repressing, okay? Having emotions is part of being a human being, okay? So that's another thing to look at, okay? Here's another thing, okay? You are super just, what's the word I'm looking for? Like kind of emotional, but also reactive. Like you're really reactive about your weight. When you weigh yourself, when you see your reflection, when you're shopping for clothes, when you see a photo of yourself, right? You tend to beat yourself up. You tend to feel intense anxiety. You tend to plan how you'll lose the weight from a frantic energy. You basically just lose your shit when your weight is not acceptable. You lose your shit and you get all frantic, and yeah, you just go into this frantic energy when you weigh yourself, and it's a roller coaster. It's not just, oh, I'm heavier than usual. Okay, I'm a functional adult though, and I am in control, so I know what I need to do. There's a solution, and I know that solution and I do it, and that's it. Versus, oh my God, I'm a pathetic human being. How did I do this to myself? Like constantly beating yourself up, and then instead of you just go, let me just do the quickest thing possible, because when I hop on the scales tomorrow, I cannot see this number. I cannot go on another day being this number, right? Or you're trying to lose weight and the scale's not reading what you want it to, you get into this energy of, I'm just going to throw my hands up in the air and give up because this is just too hard. Nothing ever works. And then we come back to that resentment, self-blame, regret. You go straight into that. I'm frustrated. I'm so resentful. Why doesn't anything ever work for me? You just go into this reactive mode of stories. I'll never lose weight. I always have trouble. Weight loss is so hard. I have all these problems and that's why I can't lose weight. You go into that mode. Okay? And I've seen people go into that mode over like 2 pounds. And if you go into that mode, if you lose your shit over 2 pounds, there is a sign that you are operating from the wounded child around food and your weight. And there is some deeper work that needs to be done before you can even, before you even want to think about losing weight or putting just nutrition and exercise aside for a moment. We've got to look at your psychology here. We've got to look at how you're functioning day to day. Because if you want to control yourself, controlling yourself, setting limits around food involves you being able to function as a healthy, functional adult, right? And healing and developing a dialogue where you're not operating from this wounded child, right? So that's basically what I did. That's what I had to do. And that's why I'm no longer struggling. I no longer feel so out of control. And I've said this before, my weight loss is not even the biggest gift here. Part of me couldn't care less if I hadn't have lost any weight. I legit mean that. Part of me doesn't care. Why? Because everything else that I've gained through doing this work is the actual gift. Everything else that I've gained through doing this work is the actual gift. Weight loss is just like this icing on the cake that I just have that as well. That I just am this naturally slim person or whatever you want to call it, right? So what the thing is here is, like I said, you have to do the deeper inner work. You have to do the deeper inner work rather than thinking that the solution lies in some new diet. Guys, weight loss is really simple. Weight loss is so straightforward. That's not the issue here. There is not some missing piece in terms of weight loss that you likely don't know yet. Yes, okay, with my private clients, I do teach them strategy stuff, right? We really do go into some strategy stuff that a lot of people do need to learn, yes. And that I actually do teach in the academy as well. We do go into strategy in the academy. But what else we also go into in the academy is this stuff. How to develop that inner dialogue. You need to start to look at developing a healthy adult inner dialogue. Healthy adult inner dialogue so that you aren't so reactive and you're not so out of control and self-sabotaging. Self-sabotaging is happening because you're operating from the wounded child. Okay? So I really want you to dig deep, and rather than opting for the quick fix or let me just try and tell myself I'll do better tomorrow, I ask you to commit to doing deeper inner work here, because trust me, weight issues, food issues develop because of dysfunctional childhoods. And because there is growth required. And I've said that before in other episodes. It is a sign that there is growing to be done. And that's nothing to have shame over or judgment. I'm still growing in so many areas. It's a gift to be able to find things, come across things and go, wow, I'm being really dysfunctional here. Like I'm going to commit to growing. Okay? Anyway, you guys, I love you guys. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you loved this episode, I'd love for you to leave me an iTunes review. Don't forget to follow this podcast for more uplifting teachings to come. For more tips, inspiration, and teachings, come follow me on Instagram at NoDietBabe, or check out my website, nodietbabe.com. Until I see you next time, babes, lots of love.